Flyers drop it tonight to the New York Rangers by a final score of 1-0 in overtime. Jason, I know we've been talking about our plans here. I think we should keep going to break and coming back because that's the third time that we've seen a Phillies home run just as we come back to break. So I think we need to fall on the sword for people here tonight and keep this going for a while.
I'll go full New York here. All right, we'll be back after this.
That's the third time tonight. That's so crazy. This is a tough one for the Flyers again. And you know, I hate to look at everything with the benefit of hindsight, but you know, you look at the Carolina tying goal the other night. Just four guys in a box around the puck carrier. Nobody gets them. You look at this one tonight. I mean, if you're Travis Konechny and you're coming down like that, and you get the pass from Hayes to your right, you see Ivan Provorov off to the left. You got to hit the net.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to recognize that there's three guys on the ice and two of them are in front of you. That means you're the furthest guy back, and if you miss the net, that's going the other way. And so, you know, that's just an unfortunate way for it to end for Carter Hart on both occasions. But this one here tonight, but you know, like we were saying, you come out of this with a point. You wish you had two, but you get the 1 point. You keep the stretch going here of games with a point, which you like that going into tomorrow in Toronto, and you're going to have to see what you can't come back against a tough Toronto team on a tough travel night.
Yeah, I think part of the reason why Konechny shoots that wide too is because he knows who that goaltender is there, and you got to be pinpoint perfect, right? I think that's also goes to it. That's a contribution as to why the Rangers hit 4 goalposts, because you have to be so perfect to beat Carter Hart right now.
Yeah.
When goalies are playing like that, they really get in between the ears of shooters. Carey Price was legendary for doing it, right? Mm-hmm. Because he was just so good. He'd make you think that he was giving you something, or that he was giving you something just to take it away, just to take away your psyche. And then all of a sudden you start going, the only way I'm going to beat this guy is with perfection. And it's hard to get the puck on net with perfection sometimes, and you miss it. And that's what happens there. And yeah, they got 3 guys deep. That's what 3-on-3 is. It's Konechny tries all he can to get back there, but you can tell there's no way he's going to cover that much ice. To Kreider, who's a lot fresher on the ice than him, and unfortunately, Kreider is able to slide it by Hart. But you know, you get a point out of both of those games. 2 good opponents. It's like winning one and losing one. The math is the same. And I don't think Torts takes anything out of it. Hey, they're 2 top teams in our division, and we played them tight. That's all well and good. But, you know, it's like winning one game and losing one game from a sheer standing standpoint.
Sure.
And, you know, I mean, in a lot of ways you go, okay, I'll take that. They've gotten points in every game but 2 so far in 9 games played. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, and when you mentioned it earlier, you know, you got these games in October. You've got things going against you. You got guys injured. You drop these points now, and you're looking for them in March, right? And you know,
looking under the couch cushions everywhere.
Yeah. And you know, by looking at the rest of the statistics, you know, the shots against tonight ends up 36-19. The total shot attempts for the Rangers gets to 73. You look at all the other statistics in the last 3 games, and you think to yourself, man, they could have come away these 3 games with 0 points, but they come away with 4. You know, those are 4 points that are going to be huge come the end of the year. So,
yeah, I mean, it's all cumulative. So it's, you know, you bank as many as you can when things are going good. You know, Torts talked about this too, about momentum. And how many times have I talked about it, Brian, where I say, you know, hockey's all about momentum. Getting momentum, doing everything you can to keep it, and then when you lose it, doing everything you can to get it back. And He talked about that in games and in season. And the more like I listen to him talk, I go, man, me and him think so much alike. I don't know if that's good or bad for him. But it's so true. And look, they're off to this start, and they've got 12 points in their first 9 games, a record of 5-2-2. They're a plus in goal differential. They were predicted not to be where they are right now. Now, there's a ton of season left. It's just a tenth of the way done, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And they started out the last 2 years with a record of 5-2-1, and we know where those seasons end up. But I think there's some pretty stark similarities to last year. There's some pretty stark differences to last year, and in both cases, positive and negative. I feel like the roster right now, because of what is injured and not available, is probably not as good as last year's roster or 2 years ago. But the record is so. But there's elements of it, and I think the biggest thing that's different is particular segments in games. They've been much better at particular points in games that are of massive consequence.
Right.
And I think that's been the biggest positive difference.
Absolutely. Let's take one break. We'll do that and then come back and wrap this one up. We'll preview what's coming up tomorrow night in Toronto, and we'll put a bow on this one. Flyers, again, valiant effort tonight in New York. They drop it in overtime 1-0. We'll be back with more here on the postgame show after this here on the Flyers Broadcast Network.
What's up, streamers? Hopefully the Phillies hit another home run on our way back. I just took another shot at Delsum. So I'm hoping I can make it through without telling like I'm getting choked up in the middle of talking. Pour them if you got them. Little cough syrup. All right.
Hey, Dan, I just sent you a link. I don't know if you can get to it or not. We might be able to get the coach if you can see it. Back here on the Flyers postgame show. Flyers fall tonight by the final of 1-0 in overtime to the New York Rangers. They're able to hold off the Rangers for all sorts of opportunities and such, and they hit a few posts as well. But Flyers had some chances on their own, of their own, Jace, on the other side. There's one particular one that I wanted to mention toward the end there. where it was Kevin Hayes, I think, that just didn't quite get it around Shesterkin. It was a great save, but it was the forecheck by Owen Tippett that caught my eye, that created the chance. He came around behind the Ranger net and just pickpocketed a Ranger defenseman. And it's another thing we're seeing from Owen Tippett, that when the Flyers traded for him, it's okay, this guy's a power forward, he's a goal scorer maybe from the wall or something like that, which is what the Flyers might have needed. But he's showing some aspects of his game that seem even broader than we thought we were getting with him.
Yeah, there's some playmaking ability there, isn't there? The one game last week, it was a home game. I can't remember which one. Maybe it was the Florida game. He set Hayes up for a beautiful goal. And I remember asking him at the intermission, I said, how'd you know he was there? And he said, I had no idea he was there. He yelled. And I just spun it to him and got him up the ice. That was the one where Hayes ended up spinning it in front to I think, Farabee after Hayes went in on the breakaway. And yeah, he's a bit of a better playmaker than I thought, but he just moves so good. Like, I love the way he skates. Yeah. He's a big framed guy, but he skates really well. And yeah, he made a great play there. There was a couple of plays I thought he made in the third period. It was actually a name that I wrote down in my little reporter's notebook during the game, that Tippett is flashing, and he's starting to show something. He hasn't played a lot this year because he got hurt in the first period of the first game, but he's starting to flash a little bit, and he's finding a little chemistry with Hayes and connecting, I think, or whoever he's out there with. There's been a lot of juggling still. Farabee and Konechny have been out there with Hayes quite a bit, but he's a guy that moves really well for a big body, and I'd still like to see him shoot a little bit more. We'll see if he can get to that mindset and confidence where he'll just fire, because he is a scorer in that way and a good shooter. So, but yeah, I think his game is rounding into form very nicely.
Yeah, it's a lot of good things to see there. Again, it was a game where ice time was pretty evenly distributed up and down the lineup. We speculated that that's at least a little bit because of the back-to-back situation. You got to spread it out. You can't have guys playing a ton of time tonight and try to come back tomorrow. But Owen Tippett, 17:55. Tony DeAngelo played 25:44 in this one. So there are going to be, regardless, some guys that maybe are a little bit worn out tomorrow. But the thing about it is that hey, they're professionals, and you're going to be in these situations probably dozen and a half times a year or so, and this will be probably the first biggest test of it. They've had a couple back-to-backs, but travel-wise, this is the biggest test of them. So they're just going to hopefully come in there and take advantage of again a situation that we've talked about before, where it seems like NHL teams, when they have 3 days off, forget how to play hockey, at least in the first period. So they can come in and kind of jump the momentum here against Toronto tomorrow. That would be a help.
Plus, there's always a lot of guys look forward to going to play in Toronto. Ontario kids, that guys that grew up in that area, and it's always a fun place to go. It's a huge hockey media market, and the temperature in Toronto right now, Bri, is boiling hot because of what the Leafs have done. They just came back from a 5-game road trip. They won the first game over Winnipeg, then they lost to Vegas, they lost to San Jose, they lost to the Kings, and they lost to the Ducks. They've lost so far in their first, 9 games or 10 games this year to the 3 worst teams in the NHL. They've lost to Arizona this season at home. They have lost to Anaheim the other night and blew a 2-goal lead in the third period. And they've lost to San Jose. Statistically speaking, that is 29 or 30, 31, and 32 in the NHL. And that's a team that has not gotten out of the first round of the playoffs since the mid-2000s, and the pressure there is hot right now. Marner benched the other day. Matthews overstaying shifts. It's a mess. They're just coming back from that long road trip. Now's a good time to jump them. Was
the series against the Flyers where Roenick ended it, was that the last time they were out of the first round?
It was.
Or have they been this since then?
Nope, that was the last time.
That was the last time, huh? Wow. That's
04, wasn't it?
Yeah, I believe it was 04. Yeah, it would have been 04, right before the lockout. So that's crazy. I mean, it's from an operational standpoint, working for an NHL team when Toronto shows up, it's obnoxious. and that's just when
Oh
they're
yeah.
like playing normally. I can't even imagine what it's like around a team with that kind of track record right now. Just
They
coming
got to
out of
make
the
some
games
moves,
and
but yeah, they're so
yeah,
flawed in construction. They have so many forwards tying up so much money. Then you're building your D
yeah,
around Riley and Muzzin, and you plan to go into this season with Matt Murray, who's shocker, he's on LTIR. Like I just don't understand the construction of that team. They got caught up trying to collect toys of forwards, and they paid all that money to Tavares. Not getting Tavares would have been the best thing for them. And I
right.
just don't know how they get out of it unless they make some kind of huge deal with a player like Marner.
Um, I mean, I don't know about you, but you say that, and the first thing I think of is Johnny Gaudreau. I mean, that's
Yeah.
I mean that was the biggest thing around the summer, right?
Yeah.
For Flyers, it was they didn't get Giant. Well, you know what? You look at the Leafs right now, and that's an example, and he's not helping in Columbus, right? So it's
No, they're the
you know
fourth worst team in the league, by the way.
yeah. Yeah, not to beat a dead horse here, but that's the kind of thing we were talking about when it's like, this is maybe not the time for him, but yeah, it's just right now we're just looking at it like, okay, the Flyers are probably not doing something right now that you would call sustainable. However, they seem to be sustaining it, and the worry I have, and it doesn't make much sense because it could be a complete coincidence, but 5-2-2 now, 5-2-2 this point last year, and if it wasn't the same record the year before, it was close to it. And obviously, we know what happened the last couple of years. The Flyers just looking here, and again, it could just be a coincidence, but they don't want the wheels to fall off at this point.
No, I mean, yeah, I mean, through 8 games, 5-2-1 was, they're through 9 now, but it was the same record, and a lot of the numbers, goals for were pretty similar. 28 was the high, 24 was the low in goals for, 21 and 24 were the goals allowed in any of those 3 years, so they're pretty similar. It's obviously pretty small sample size. There's some good wins over some good opponents. There's wins over some teams that turned out to not be good, like Vancouver last year, for example. They went into Vancouver and got that win. I think it's 2 years ago now, where they went to Edmonton, won 5-3, and then back to back they got the 2-1 win. No, that was last year, because Martin Jones got that win against Vancouver. So, yeah, I mean, there's some similarities there and stuff, but overall, you look at it, and we're going to need more sample size. We'll say it's not sustainable until we see it's not sustainable,
Right.
and look, a lot of people thought the first half of the Rangers season last year wasn't sustainable because they gave up too many opportunities, but Shesterkin, was so good. And then eventually, they did get better defensively around Christmas. So, and they turned into a really, really good team. Now they have a lot more talent at their disposal right now than the Flyers do, high end talent. So they need more of that. But, I think that, there's some elements here that are similar and there's some elements that are not.
I've seen some graphic today on Twitter. I can't find it right now, but it was running down goals above expected goals by every team in the league, and the Flyers are one of a handful of teams that are like 4 or 5 above what they are quote unquote expected to be. And I've never really cared for that stat much. I get the point of it, but it's kind of like, okay, it's expected goals, and that's based on all these other things. And you got to, take those things as gospel to get to expected goals. I think. I don't know. This is it's not just the Flyers doing it. It's there's a handful of teams around here that, again, small sample size, but they're kind of seem to be rewriting things a little bit in terms of what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, I think the expected goals model is a little flawed at times because it takes into account the spot on the ice where it originated from. It doesn't take into account all the extra factors that go into a scoring chance. So
Right.
sometimes, expected goals can be a little off in that way. I tend to use the analytics from CSA, which is ClearSight Analytics, and actually, since they play the Rangers, I'll mention it. Stephen Valaket, who was a goalie for the Rangers, works for MSG as one of their analysts, has a company called ClearSight Analytics, and they have 27 points of data on every scoring chance from how long. I mean, literally, and they chart the entire NHL
I
And
can't even think of five.
yeah, I mean, it's incredible, Bry. And
Wow.
yeah, I mean, it measures everything. He was a backup goalie, and I think it was when Torts was there that he got tired of the goaltender being blamed for goals that he didn't have a chance on.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
when he developed the idea for this company. Torts would be giving it to Lundqvist, and he'd be telling Hank, that really wasn't your fault. It crossed
Yeah. Yeah.
as he used to call it, the Royal Road, and it was off his stick within a third of a second. And he created this whole formula and started a company out of it.
Gotcha.
So
Wow.
pretty interesting.
Absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
it is a new day in terms of what we can see and what we can track and what we know, and the previous NHL model that tracked 300 data points a game. Now you've got chips in the puck
3,000.
and chips in the pads, and you're about
Yeah.
10,000. I think they said
Yeah.
once that all started. So
Yeah, that's what Ian
yeah.
Anderson was saying when he was on Flyers Daily. Like I saw one of the pucks the other day when Nick Laurier got that assist and Joe was wrapping it up for him, and you can see the chips in the puck,
Yeah.
the little raised beveled areas there. I was like, oh, okay.
I'll never forget when they debuted those. It was a test, but they debuted them in the All-Star game in San Jose. And let's go to John Tortorella real quick. I'll interrupt that story, and let's pick up John Tortorella's post-game comments.
Well, I thought we weren't even looking to make. We were in such panic mode. It's a long change period. We couldn't get guys off the ice sometimes. They had it on a string in a couple of shifts, and you just end up getting backed off. You end up, you just lose a little bit of your confidence. I thought in the third period, made some plays. I thought we were more interested in the third period so we could come out together. Uh, yeah, so it ramped up on us for the second period. But I'm not going to criticize the hockey team. I thought they played hard. This is going to be a little bit of what we are as we try to get this on the right track. Maybe get some guys back eventually along the way. We've got some guys that it's a little rich for them. But I look at it as a great opportunity for them to play and gain some experience. And I think when we get healthy, we become a better team. These guys have gone through some of those experiences.
Yesterday, you said they can't keep playing with bad starts from a deficit. Did you do anything different before the game, and what was it like watching them get that experience of playing tied through the game?
Yeah, I thought, like I said yesterday, it's easy to play from behind because it was one of those games, and I know they had more chances, especially in the second period. But it was one of those games that it's just a kind of an up and down hockey game. We had some chances also, and it's great experience for some guys to play in this building, and the way the atmosphere was, and just stay within themselves. That's what I liked about it is that after an abysmal second period, I thought we gathered ourselves, and I thought we played a good third period. They had a few more chances in the overtime, which to be expected with some of the talent that they have. But hey, I'm not getting me to criticize the hockey club because I think some guys are growing, and as long as I see effort, care,
That's what
please,
he's going to be happy with, and he's been saying that from the beginning, Jason. That there's going to be mistakes. And he says that on an individual basis and on a team basis, there's going to be mistakes. So as long as those mistakes are made with effort, they'll work through it, and that's what he's kind of putting tonight in that basket.
Yeah, I think we're seeing a lot of consistency in his message from the jump street. He talked about accountability, and he has shown that no one's immune, and the things that are important to him. I think everybody that is putting on those skates and playing for him right now is starting to realize, the touch points of what keep him sane. Keeping a coach sane is very difficult
Yeah,
because he's managing so many people and different, players and elements of it. But I think we're seeing a guy that's, trying to stress the most important things. And maybe right now the most important thing is not always winning. Like you look at the San Jose game.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that was the point. That he's down 2 goals against an inferior team that night, certainly playing that way, and he chose to put his 2 best players on the bench. So he's looking for his spots to. I don't think he's looking for them, but as they happen, he's going to take advantage that they're there, and it's going to be some hard lessons for guys, and they're going. Some players are going to go through it. I think Morgan Frost is going through it right now. It's his turn. I think it's going to be everybody's turn at some point, but.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a guy out there for the most part that's not going to go through it.
Yeah, and he talked about this too. Just a final thought in his media availability yesterday after practice that he really believes in momentum, but for him, it's not momentum just in terms of what we talk about a lot, which is period by period or just within the scope of a single hockey game. He looks at the whole season and thinks momentum can last from game to game.
I agree.
It can last a week. It can last a couple of weeks. And the key for him is to keep that momentum as long as you can. And we've seen that from the Flyers over the last, they didn't have any momentum almost at any point last season and a half. But before that, 1920, I mean, you saw a team that stumbled out of the gate, but then they found momentum coming out of the new year. And they were the hottest team in hockey when it shut down. So, you've seen that before, and that's kind of what he's probably trying to foster here. And like you said, maybe he could have been more effective in that third period against San Jose with those 2 guys on the ice. But you take them off the ice for that period, and then you move on to the next game, and then maybe that starts another momentum that gives you wins in, or that's basically what it's done, right? 4 games could have had very few points. Instead, they come out with a point in each one. So. Just trying to string that along and, pick up points as you go.
Yeah, I totally agree with them because there's points in you can call it momentum. You can just call it confidence. You can call it swagger, whatever it is. But it does go game to game because we've seen it. We've seen teams go on heaters, and that's basically riding the momentum of good play. And those things can swell and compound and, keep leading you to wins because you get onto this belief that no matter what we do, and the reason you believe it is because it bears out a lot of times. Sometimes there's nothing you can do but win, and sometimes there's nothing you can do but lose, no matter what you do in the game. That seems odd to say, oddly inconsequential, but it's true. It's just because that's the way the sport works. So, I thought that was really interesting too, because we think of momentum shift to shift or period to period. We don't think of it game to game to game or week to week or month to month in a season. But I agree with that sentiment that Tort said. And I think that's really interesting.
So let's put a bow on this one tomorrow, though. Another, again, tall order, Toronto Maple Leafs, but a team that's staggering a little bit. Maybe get a couple punches early and see what they can't come away with, huh?
Oh, yeah. You punch them right in the mouth right away on their home ice, just returning home. They'll be chucking jerseys on that ice up there. It'll be a mess. I'd like half say that kiddingly. I mean, but what it's like up there in Toronto. They freak out, and I mean, look, they have a right to. So we'll see. There's a lot of pressure on that team. There's a lot of pressure on the GM right now, Kyle Dubas. There's a ton of pressure on Sheldon Keefe, the coach. There's pressure on Marner, on Matthews. I mean, it's a big old mess right there. Let's contribute to it.
Absolutely. Well, that'll be at 7 o'clock tomorrow here on the Flyers Broadcast Network. Our flagship tomorrow will be on 93.3 WMMR, and we'll also have the game for you on Flyers Radio 24/7 and 92.5 HD3. So it's going to be, again, second half of back-to-back Flyers Maple Leafs tomorrow, 7 o'clock. So we hope you will be along with us for that. So that'll do it for us for this one here this evening. A few folks to thank. Tommy Albert is on the highlights tonight, and Dan Fritz, our producer, back at the station. Mike Infantino, our producer, on site in the Big Apple tonight for Tim Saunders. Steve Coates and Jason Martinez. I'm Brian Smith saying so long. Once again, your final score tonight in overtime was the New York Rangers 1 and the Flyers 0. We'll talk to you tomorrow night, Flyers and the Toronto Maple Leafs, here on the Flyers Broadcast Network.